Welcome back to The Health Hunt, a human, humble, and often hilarious exploration of how to better understand our health. Today, we're joined by Michelle Fletcher, founder of the Holistic Business Network, longtime wellness educator, and someone deeply passionate about helping people reconnect with whole food nutrition, holistic health, and meaningful human connections. In this first part of our conversation, we talk about plant-based eating, whole foods, nutrition trends, smoothies, sugar, protein, processed foods, veganism, and the reality that there's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to health. Beyond nutrition, we also get into something we think is incredibly important: learning how to listen to your own body instead of just blindly following every health trend that shows up online. This episode is full of some very honest and unexpectedly funny conversations about food cravings, cheese addictions, French fries, texture issues, and the complicated emotional relationship many of us have with eating. And as always, the Health Hunt podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We're absolutely not medical professionals, and nothing shared in this episode should be considered medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your health routine. Now, let's get into part one of our conversation with Michelle Fletcher.
Today, we're joined by Michelle Fletcher, a true connector, community builder, and a powerhouse in the health and wellness space. Michelle is the founder of the Holistic Business Network, a global platform dedicated to helping holistic practitioners and wellness entrepreneurs grow their visibility, build partnerships, and actually get seen and heard in a very crowded space. She spent over 15 years as a health coach and educator with a strong focus on plant-based nutrition and helping people understand the power of whole foods for their long-term health. What makes Michelle especially unique is that she didn't build her network through algorithms or ads. She built it through real human connection, in-person events, and creating spaces where people can collaborate and grow together. And I can personally say that I actually met Michelle at one of her networking events, and I just loved her energy. The connectivity in the room was real, and she runs what I'd call a kick-ass speed networking experience that actually delivers on what it's supposed to do, is networking. And so I really enjoyed that. So today we're diving into plant-based nutrition, fiber, holistic health, how to actually build meaningful connections in the wellness space. So with that being said, Michelle, welcome to the Health Hunt.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, welcome. And we have not had the pleasure of meeting. Dan didn't invite me to that networking event, but I've heard it was wonderful. And so I'm going to the next one. Okay, just so you know.
There you go.
Welcome.
I'm getting the blame. I'm getting the blame when we just started. Wow. So, Michelle, let's just start where it all should start, is just give us your backstory. Tell us your why, and tell us how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, it's funny because my backstory is not in health per se. I have a background in IT. I worked in data analysis and data management for over 10 years for some big corporations. And then I lost my job. Around the same time. I had two little ones, and I was just like really trying to figure out, did I want to continue in the space I was in, which I was really good at my job, but did I love it? Not so much. So I was home with my kids for like a year, and then I met someone who introduced me to plant nutrition and like concentrated plant nutrition as a whole food supplement. And I was like, what? I have been so into health and wellness for a long time. I've been a resource for like wellness for a lot of friends, just from reading magazines and always just trying to stay up to date on like the latest thing in health and in fitness too. I always had a fitness routine that people would follow me. I had coworkers coming to the gym with me. I had friends that I helped to lose like over 50 pounds, just working out with me. And I learned all of that from like my college experience. I went to a college that had a really great athletic program, which meant we had a really great gym. So I got to take advantage of all of those things. That we had free personal trainers. So I like learned all the things I could learn from the personal trainers. And so because of that, that nutrition aspect that wasn't really a big part of my lifestyle was so intriguing. So I was like, what is that? I want to know more about it. my kid's holistic pediatrician actually recommends it because I see it in every room we go into. And so I went deep down a rabbit hole of how plant foods can really help to like save your life and reverse disease and do all the things. So that was how the tables turned from my IT background into health and wellness. And I've always had a passion for health and wellness. So it just was like so in alignment. And so with that business, I joined that business. It was part of network marketing. I got to the top 2% of that business. It took me 9 years. And so, but I was spreading the message of consuming more plant foods everywhere, not just locally where I live, but around the country. And I also traveled outside of the country multiple times to share this message. And so, that was my passion. But then the pandemic happened. 2020 happened and I was just like following all, like I'm not a big TV watcher, but whenever I did hear things that were on the TV, I was just like, they're promoting everything but natural wellness. There's so many ways that people can naturally get healthier without having to do all these things that are more invasive to your body, right? And so it was in 2021 that I kind of transitioned a little bit out of what I was doing to promote my own business and started these events where I said, you know what, I have incorporated so many other modalities of health in my lifestyle, whether it was adding in like omegas, whether it was going to the chiropractor, the acupuncturist, natural products in the home, like all these things I had incorporated. And I was just like, people don't realize how important these things are. So I started having events to showcase other businesses outside of what I did. So this is how I got started. And within like the first 2 events, people were coming to me really wanting to know how they could get in contact with the people at my events because everyone was vetted from day one. I was just like, I really want to make sure not only do they provide a good service or product, but they're really nice and good people that they're going to be dealing with people that I'm recommending to them. So from that, because I was getting such a demand for the people that were a part of my events, I then created a network less than a year later that is a resource center for all these people. But not only that, a way that I help these business owners move even faster in getting the visibility that they need. A lot of times there's way too many of us that are the best kept secret. So that's really what I do is help them to get that visibility by being connected with me. I created multiple platforms for them to do that online and in person and so many other ways. And there's just a lot of connections that I'm able to create from just people being within my in my circle. So that is the long short version of that story.
Well, that story is very parallel to mine because I come from technology and IT and that world. And so I certainly don't have an MD. I'm not even a health practitioner, but I implement all these things in my life. And this is the stories that we tell here. So hopefully people can learn and find and search for more information. So I totally understand that. And I know that Sandy had a smirk. You said all the things. And that is what Sandy says. Sandy's all about all the things.
I'm all about all the things. But in addition to that, so I already love you for that. I love your story in that, like, sometimes people are doing things and they're good at them, but there's other passions that they have and they're not pursuing them. And so it sometimes takes the universe or whatever it is that you believe in to kind of kick you out of that old thing and open up opportunities for the new thing. So I love that is part of your journey. That's, you had the first thing where you lost your job and then you were doing something and then COVID and you had to rescale and recircle and replan. And so I really like that journey. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the confirmation.
So let's jump right into it. I think you mentioned plant foods a couple times. So I'm going to, take this because I don't know much about plant foods, I know what plant foods are, generally speaking, but they're not really very much into my diet. So I think the first question I want to ask is, how do you define plant foods? What are plant foods?
So plant foods are really our foundational foods that were put on earth from the beginning of time, right? So the fruits, the vegetables, the nuts, the seeds, the grains, those are all plant foods. And so there's so much various types of nutrition and minerals and all of those things found in those plant foods. It's like food, truly, when you see that term where Hippocrates says food is medicine, that's the type of food he's referring to. All of those plant foods that we just get. And then we also have herbs too that are very medicinal and have so many different benefits. I feel like we're living in a time that people are so far removed because, farming used to be the biggest thing people did back in the day, right? But now we have all these mass productions and factories. And so even like you'll talk to younger generations, they don't even know how food grows. They don't even know what it looks like as it's like growing in the ground or however it grows, if it's on a vine or on a tree. It's just mind blowing how far removed we are from our foundational, Adam and Eve, they were in the garden. So just getting back to those basic foundational foods.
Got it. Is, again, indulge my ignorance. Is plant-based eating the same thing as like vegan or vegetarian?
Plant-based does refer to like vegetarian or vegan, but I am not a vegetarian or a vegan. I just know the benefits of eating more plants because most Americans do not eat nearly enough fruits and vegetables in their diet. So adding more in, even if you just start with like, say, I'm going to add in like one extra fruit over a week or 2 weeks, and then try and add in a vegetable. So one extra fruit, one extra vegetable. That is just consuming more plant foods. But it doesn't have to mean that some people do make it synonymous with being a vegan, plant-based. But for me, it's just trying to consume as many as possible because in reality, we should be consuming as adults 9 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. And do you guys know why that is?
I certainly don't.
Not the numbers, no.
Okay, so back in the day, I think you guys are my age. You're probably a little younger than me. I'm going to be 50 this year, so I don't know.
Yeah.
So you might be younger. I don't
know. Not younger.
You can hear crickets. You can hear the crickets. A pin drops.
I'm just like, I can't assume that people are older than me now that I'm almost 50. So I'm like, I don't know. So back in the day, our food had way more nutrition than it has now. Like between the practices that they use to grow food, the soil is so depleted. So what we're getting nutritionally in our food, in our fruits and vegetables and produce is just not what it was when our parents are. Also, the most fruits and vegetables that we get today in the store, they've been picked before they're allowed to vine ripen. Vine ripening is the main stage where that produce gains the majority of its nutrients. So if they're picking it before it's vine ripened, we're getting so much less nutrition in our fruits and vegetables today. Back in like the 80s and the 90s, it used to be the food pyramid, right? Where it was like,
yeah, that thing.
5 a day. Remember, it was 5 a day. Well, now they changed it to 9 to 13 because even they are aware of the lack of the nutrition that we're getting today. So we have to consume even more and just to get a lot of the nutrients that maybe 50 years people were getting naturally from 5. So there's so many things tied into where we are with our food and how it's produced and how we get it and how it's grown in other countries and sent to us. And by the time we get it, it's been sitting out for like 3 weeks. So it's losing nutrition just sitting on the shelf in between the transportation stage. So yeah, it's going to keep increasing, I'm sure, if we're not just eating locally. And that's why they say, try and eat local, find local farmers. That's so important. Or grow your own. Like I've been growing my own food now for like 14 years.
That's my dream. I grew up in the country, and so my grandfather had a garden, and it was just like for me the most delightful thing. I helped him plant stuff, and I couldn't wait for the carrots to grow, and the summer was just waiting for the raspberries to ripen, and so that would be something that if I could go back to, I really would for so many reasons. But
oh my gosh, you're a pro.
Well, not anymore, but I have a question, and this is more like where I'm thinking the audience might be inquisitive. So you mentioned start with adding a piece of fruit or, one serving of fruits and vegetables. But first of all, I'm assuming that variety is important. Like you don't want to have 8 servings of the same thing. And also with respect to fruit, probably more than vegetables, should you maybe be mindful of not eating only very sweet fruits that are considered high glycemic, maybe pineapple or watermelon or things like that? I mean, should someone make more conscious efforts when they're deciding on which fruits and or vegetables to put in?
So I would say if someone has a health issue, like if they're diabetic. So my dad was a diabetic and insulin dependent. He had to be very cautious on what fruits he was eating. But if you don't have any health issues, in all honesty, consuming sweet fruits, because it's there, if you're eating it in its whole form versus being juiced, then you should be good because it has the fiber, it has the natural sugars, and your body actually knows how to manage those the glycemic index better because of the fiber alongside the sugar. Your body knows how to manage that. And then not only that, every fruit and vegetable has over 10 nutrients and minerals. So there's so much nutrition in everything you're eating. And then every one has like different components. So, one may be really great with vitamin C, another one really great with like vitamin K. So, but then it's working with like 10,000 other vitamins and nutrients that work in synergy that your body's just like, it knows what to do and it's going to the right places in your body. So, unless you do have like a health challenge that you need to be cautious, I say go for it. Get started where you are and what makes you comfortable. Just get it in your body. It's important.
Okay, that's great.
I have two comments, and you can sincerely, you can do whatever you want with these, but it made me think of 2 things. One is, it may not be the case, probably still is, all these juicing places, these places you walk in, you get smoothies, any number of brands, we're not going to name any of them here. You have these seemingly healthy smoothies. But what you really have is just like unbelievable amount of fruits and sugar that are going into these with like a cucumber or a celery or something. And you're getting a crazy amount of sugar. So that can't be good, right?
Listen, it's so funny. When I was working in corporate, so this is over how long ago? Over 15 years ago, me and my coworkers would go to Jamba Juice. Like we loved Jamba Juice. Oh,
So good. But also, I know what you're going to say.
gained. It was so weird. I didn't understand why, but I gained like 8 pounds that month. And I was like, how did I gain? And then I looked at the label and saw how much sugar was in my smoothie. And I could not believe it. I was like, oh my, and this was before I was into nutrition, but it really opened my eyes because it was like the same amount of sugar as like a Mountain Dew. I was like, what? So, you're right. I agree, Daniel. It's not something you should consume all the time. So I make smoothies, but I make it with protein powder. So I use a vegan protein powder. If you're balancing it out with protein, then it's going to help your glycemic index and your blood sugar levels be more level versus that is a huge sugar spike. And then I would wonder, why was I so tired after drinking it? Because my sugar just like went right up and then dropped because of all that sugar. So it's definitely something I tell people if they ask. I'm just like, yeah, you might want to be wary of drinking those too often, especially if it doesn't have protein in it, because protein will help to balance it out. There's a little bit of fiber in there from whatever fruits they're using, but add the protein so that you're not getting this huge spike because it is a lot of sugar. I agree.
I'm assuming, too, there's a calorie discussion to be had, especially with some of those extra large smoothies. I mean, you don't necessarily need 2,000 calories in something that you're just having as a mid-taste snack. That
Right.
people aren't, they're under the guise that it's healthy and they feel all, like you probably felt all good about yourself. Look at me and my giant I consume this giant amount of healthy stuff. But you don't realize you're
Right.
adding like double the calories to any meal you would ever eat. So
Exactly. Like, I don't think anyone needs to be drinking a container
No.
that big of a smoothie. Like, it's crazy. But I used to do it.
I've done it too. I've done all the juice things. I loved, like, you go in and you feel it's all healthy. You see them juicing things and you're like, oh my God, I'm feeding my soul.
Exactly. Right.
Then you learn more and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so my next comment is, this is just a personal story, is that I'm from Wisconsin originally, the cheese state. And so my snacks at night were always frozen custard. That's what we had. And the best custard, aka ice cream on steroids. And today I've come a long way. So, because today my snack at night and you can feel free to opine on this snack, is Greek yogurt, protein powder, chocolate protein powder mixed in that Greek yogurt with a blackberry or a raspberry, and I love it.
Approved. That is so good.
Yeah. That's an upgrade. Good job, Dan.
Yeah.
Look where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
Dan.
exactly, right? To go from the custard to that. But no, that's a really good upgrade. Seriously, with the protein, the Greek yogurt has a bunch of protein too. So that is phenomenal. And adding a little fruit for sweetness. Yeah.
I never thought mixing chocolate protein powder into that would be like a thing, but I love it. I'm like, where have I been, man? Now I'm all about it.
Where have you been?
Okay, yeah. I'm sure people are going to be asking you for this recipe.
Yeah. It's the biggest recipe I got in my kitchen. I'll tell you that much. 3 ingredients.
Put it in the show notes. I mean, so probably just disclose it. It's no longer a secret. But
so, all jokes aside, has plant-based eating become like? Is it a big conversation now? Is it trending? Are people moving that way, or is it still kind of just like, no thanks, but no thanks?
You know what? It's so funny. It was a huge conversation. I would say like 10 years ago, it was like at the climax of everyone was like, you need to go plant-based. And for me, I didn't feel like it worked for me and my body type. And so when people jump on like these types of things where it's really putting you in a box for what you should do. And I feel like everyone's different. And so right now I'm noticing that a lot of my friends that were vegan a lot are no longer vegan because they've been going to the doctor and the doctor's saying, you're lacking in this, you're lacking in that. You need to add back in meat. I've had at least 5 friends that were vegan that are now no longer vegan because of that. So for some people, plant-based works really well. So within my network, I have a doctor, he's a gene therapist, and he speaks to this. He's vegan, but his wife eats meat. And he gene tested his whole family. And so it turns out his body works better being a vegan. Her body actually works better being more of a carnivore diet. One of their children takes after the mom, and one of the other children takes after him. So you really have to be mindful of not just following the crowd on these trends and really listening to your own body and what works for you.
I've talked about this in the podcast, but you don't know this. I am a vegetarian, and I feel this need to, like, I guess because there's a stigma. So when I say it to people, I feel this need to say it's not political. It's not. And I mean, I do, appreciate the animals and things like that. It didn't come from there. It came from, I never liked meat. I ate hamburgers maybe when I was a very little kid. My mom fed me mostly chicken because she didn't know what else to give me. I was, I wanted to eat from the garden. I wanted to eat carrots, and I liked eggs. So I'm naturally, just when I got old enough to feed myself, I just sort of stopped eating meat and now, I think I had a traumatic experience with steak when I was 2. So I never got over the feeling of chewing it. So I had a functional medicine doctor tell me that I should go back on eating meat. And I didn't go back and see him because I don't crave meat. The thought of chewing it after 20 plus years is just unappealing. I don't want fake meat like ribs or things. I mean, the burger, some of those are good, but like the fake, the plant-based, but I don't crave it. And I have tried veganism because I had this fear of I have chronic pain issues. And so I was worried about inflammation. So I cut out dairy because I could have been from Wisconsin because I love cheese. I would eat cheese on cheese. And so I have to manage myself with cheese. I can't have certain cheeses in the house because that would be all I would eat. But so I for a while I've gone stints where I was a vegan, and I've done raw veganism, which is a whole other thing. And I actually felt really good, but I tend to be cold. And so missing warm meals was very difficult. And I've actually heard it's better for digestion to have warm meals and things like that mixed in. But so, I've heard, and maybe it's a book I read, Eating for Your Blood Type or something. Eat right, I don't know. And so when I saw the characters, because my blood type, the way that I eat kind of fits in. But it's really very similar to what I was like as a kid. And so right now I'm a vegetarian because I do feel better with eggs, and it's very hard to get protein sources adequately without certain things. And I've added back in some cottage cheese and things, which seems to be fine. I can't have brie in the house because I would just eat the whole wheel every day. I just can't. It's not an option. Yeah, it is. I would put brie and put it on a hard cheese, on top of Parmesan or something. Why? Cheese. Anyway, so I am now I think I'm comfortable with the diet where I'm vegetarian, and plant-based, but there are eggs and certain realistic cheeses.
Yeah. You know what I found too? Is now we're at a stage where before people used to be so adamant about other people eating the way they ate. But now I'm realizing I've seen the change in people's attitudes towards different types of people's like eating habits. So that's been really good too. I'm really grateful for that because it was really like stigmatized where people were like, well, you should not be eating this. Oh my gosh, don't you? And now it's really calmed down to where, you know, you'll have the vegan and the carnivore eating together. And thank goodness for these restaurants that have become so much more aware that they supply something for everyone. Most menus, you can find something. There might not be a huge selection, but there's usually something because a lot of times I will eat like a vegan. Like I'll go through days where I'm like, oh, I'm not eating any meat. It's just, you know, it just happens. But yeah, hopefully you found substitutes or other protein sources, Sandy, to bridge those gaps.
Yeah, I eat tofu, and I know there's been a whole debate about soy, but it doesn't. I'm very sensitive to if I eat something, I feel pain or inflammation. So I'm very sensitive to that kind of stuff. So I'm just, if it's not bothering me and it's giving me the sources of things I need, then for now I'm going with it. And I feel the need to tell people this. I'm not offended by somebody eating a steak next to me. And like weird fun fact, I'm like a 4-year-old with this seafood. I can't even talk about it. It makes me nauseous. So like if someone has steak and there's mashed potatoes or risotto, I will eat the mashed potatoes and risotto that's touching the steak. I will not if it's touching seafood. But I'm not offended. I'm not mad that somebody is eating those things in front of me. I just don't want them.
I feel you. I have my thing too. I'm huge on textures. So there's a lot of textures I don't eat. And people think like, how do you not eat this? And I'm just like, I can't do it. The mushy textures, I cannot do it. I do not like cheesecake. I do not like bananas. I don't like any of that stuff. So I understand you fully. And I think it's all in the mind, but.
Oh, for sure. It's in the mind. I mean, why can't I eat risotto that's underneath a piece of fish and I can eat it under a piece of steak? I mean, it's 100% in my mind.
Well, the last thing I'll say on this topic is one more comment is that I've been out with a lot of people at dinner that are quote unquote, and I'm doing air quotes for those that aren't seeing this visually, that they are vegetarians or vegans. And I'll watch them order and they'll order a dish that is appropriate for that title. But then all of a sudden they'll be, okay, and can I have a side of sweet potato fries or French fries? And then for dessert, they want the carrot cake or they want something. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is not healthy. Like I got a burger with no bun on a like lettuce wedge with like a bunch of stuff on it and like kind of healthy, but like not really healthy. But like what you're doing over there with the French fries and the dessert, and that's not really, if you go to the doctor, he's going to have some comments for you.
Daniel, that is too funny. Well, you know, they're just vegan, but they're not saying they're eating the healthiest. They're just saying they're avoiding the meat because you'll find some people that are super unhealthy, like vegans and vegetarians. They're eating all the French fries, probably cooked in all the wrong oils, right? They're eating all these things because a lot of times when you are vegan or vegetarian, you're hungry all the time because you're not getting that satiation from protein. So then they're gravitating to a lot of like the processed foods that may not have any like meat byproduct or whatever. So it's not to say that they're super healthy. It's just that they're avoiding the meat. But that's so funny that you said.
Just an observation.
I've been known to get a side of French fries.
Nothing wrong with that.
You know, sometimes the salad's boring and I'm cold and that's you know what, that's my problem in restaurants is that I'm so cold in the restaurant that I order things that I feel like will warm me up. And so I don't enjoy a salad in a cold restaurant because I'm just freezing and and like a cup of tea is not helping. So that's what's like changing my cravings.
So see, Daniel, you hear the mindset. Sandy's cold. Maybe some of these people are cold. They want something warm to warm them up.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
French fries are better than
Or they love French fries. I mean, I'm a French fry lover myself. Yeah. Like, I do love French fries. I don't eat them nearly as much as I used to, but I do love French fries.
Well, apparently this episode taught us that no matter how much we talk about wellness, everybody still loves French fries. But in all seriousness, this was such a fun and refreshing conversation because Michelle brings a really balanced perspective to health. There's no perfectionism, no fear-based messaging, and no one-size-fits-all approach. Just practical ways to think more intentionally about what we're putting in our bodies and how we take care of ourselves long term. Now, in part 2 of this conversation, we're going to shift even deeper into the discussion about fiber, colon health, metabolic health, insulin regulation, holistic wellness, stress, sleep, movement, and why community and human connectivity may actually be one of the most overlooked aspects of health altogether. And honestly, some of the fiber discussion completely changed the way we think about what most people are and aren't getting in their diets. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you'd follow the podcast, leave us a rating or review, and share this episode with someone who's trying to build a healthier lifestyle in a more realistic and sustainable way. Thank you so much for listening to The Health Hunt. We'll see you next time for part 2 of our conversation with Michelle Fletcher.